Hi, Deevoz.
Hello there.
Welcome backers.
Yeah, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. What are we talking about today in the Stevietalks?
Today we're talking about things that streamers struggle with, especially mental health things.
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 What kind of things?
So we made a bit of a list of different things to talk about.
Yeah.
And like some things you just get born with. For example, ADD or ADHD.
Yeah.
And it's something that doesn't disappear the moment you start being a streamer. And as it's relatively common in like the population, it's also relatively common with streamers. So it's an interesting thing to look at.
Okay, and what things are we talking about here?
So yeah, we got ADD, ADHD, we got depression, anxiety, we got dyslexia, and we got the imposter syndrome for today.
I think that's plenty.
Definitely.
I think these are, even though we're joking about it a little bit, I think these are the biggest ones that streamers are dealing with.
Yeah.
All right, definitely. You want to start?
Yes. So let's start with ADHD and ADD.
Okay.
Which is basically the same thing, just people with ADD don't have the hyperactivity.
Yeah, because there's always a confusion about that, right? There's always a confusion, but like, yeah, that's the same thing, but it's actually not.
Yeah.
Can you explain?
Makes a huge difference.
Yeah, can you explain how it is such a difference?
So, hyperactivity means that you have a very, very high energy level. Like, it kind of is self-explanatory by the word itself, but that means you have a very high energy level, and that also enables you to do more things at once.
Okay.
While if you only have ADD, you lack that hyperactivity. You might have super low energy and still won't be able to focus on one thing, or have a very hard time doing so.
Okay.
And that can have like different results, like not being able to pay attention to a lecture, for example. Not being able to follow a conversation for some people. Not being able to finish a train of thought because something else caught your attention and you're like a bit like a squirrel and be like, oh, a nut. And then you're gone.
So it's pretty much like the attention span. I think that's a big one that you said right there.
Yeah. But it's also connected to like interest a bit. It's a bit weird to say that, but like if something's really interesting, it's usually easier to keep the attention on it for longer than if something is not inherently interesting.
But how does that correlate to streaming? What is the difference in relation to streaming?
So in streaming, I don't know, I do have ADD, and I always saw it a bit as a superpower because I'm able to like switch to chat and back to the game without big issues. Mm-hmm. Like like I didn't need to finish that one train of thought first because I'm so used to switching my train of thoughts in the middle that it felt very easy for me to read chat constantly.
Yeah.
But if I need to like, let's make a little game example here. If I'm playing Hunt Showdown and I need to hold an angle and I need to look at one spot for 2 minutes, I'm out. Like I physically cannot do that. I cannot sit there and look at one spot if nothing happens. Like my mind drifts off. I'm gone.
Like, but where does your mind go?
For example, to chat, sometimes I think about what I will eat later. Sometimes I think about, oh, the neighbor's dog is crying very loud today. What's going on there? Oh, someone's coughing, and yeah.
Okay.
It could be anything. Like literally anything that happens on my screen or on the outside world might be more interesting than that.
So how does that correlate to ADHD with gaming?
So correlate is a bit of it's just like a bit of a similar problem to begin with.
Okay.
Because you have that issue with focus, but on top of that, you might also have issues to like stay still for a while. Maybe you need to like stand up several times during a gaming session, and that might be a bit harder to do when streaming, for example.
So do you think their biggest thing is like the focus?
I think focus is a very big thing in general, yeah.
Yeah.
Like not being able to focus and being able or like getting distracted super quickly. And this usually also reflects in like the living space of people.
Oh yeah.
Like with ADHD.
Yeah.
It's usually like they want to clean up one room, let's say. They pick up one thing, they want to put it in the right place. On the middle, they find something else that needs to be cleaned. They put it down randomly somewhere in the apartment that doesn't make any sense. They start doing the next thing, and in the end, there's as much chaos as there was before. But they spend 2 hours doing that.
Yeah, it's
so
interesting.
It's very like ADHD and ADD is a very rough thing to deal with. You kind of need to find ways to trick yourself.
Okay. Such as
like making yourself little reminders or little quests, and like knowing that you want to put it down to start something new, and constantly keep in mind, I'm finishing this now. No, exactly that. Not touching anything else. Nothing else is important. I'm gonna take this T-shirt and put it in the bin or something.
So this is like is this a long process? Is this a short process? No, it's a long process before you can actually get there, right?
Yes and no. There's rarely recipes in psychology. Like there's rarely recipes that work for everyone. For some, it is a pretty easy process after they have like understood it on a mental level, to like take little parts that help them to do things. And also like there's also medicine about it. Like there's you can take drugs against that. Well, those are not necessarily the
best solution.
Exactly. No, they might be the best solution for some.
For some people, but not always. That's what we're saying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's always different solutions for other people. Kind of depends on you as a person.
Does this also really induce a lot of anxiety? Or does it also depend on the person?
I would say that heavily depends on the person as well. If they see it as something, like if they are aware that it is something that constantly distracts them and that makes it very hard for their life, and they never really learned how to deal with it, how to cope with it, how to trick themselves at times, I think that can induce anxiety. At the same time, if you have learned how to deal with it really well and you're very used to it, then you might not even notice that as a disability, basically.
All right, can you explain to people that might not know what anxiety is? What is actually anxiety?
So anxiety, that is a very very rough description, but it's generally, it means it's in a well-defined situation that is not dangerous, that you fear something. That is like the most generalistic way of putting it.
Yeah, I think it also has to do with a lot of nervousness.
Yeah,
maybe stress-induced. It can be multiple factors, right? That can create anxiety, or suddenly you have anxiety. Some people know that it's coming up. Some people, it hits them out of the blue.
Yep.
Which anxiety...
there's several subtypes in the end.
Yeah, of course. You can go into detail and there's different subtypes. But I think overall, together in correlation with streaming, I think a lot of people have a certain stress or a certain nervousness around them because of streaming.
Yeah.
You were talking about subtypes.
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit like what that means?
So, for example, there's social phobia, social anxiety, basically. Yeah. So any sort of social interaction is something that people are very anxious about. They don't feel comfortable in these situations, don't feel comfortable talking to others, don't feel comfortable making new contacts at all. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that they don't want that. That doesn't mean that they don't need social interaction.
But it's a scary thing.
Humans need to.
It can be a scary thing, right?
Exactly.
So, but how is it possible then that you can stream? Or is that a different thing?
I think it is possible because you're very much in control in streaming, right? Okay. If you want to end social interaction in that exact second, you click a button and everything's dark.
Do you also think it has to do with that you don't see that person in front of you?
It might help. Again, this might be a thing that is very different for different persons.
Definitely.
I know people that have social anxiety that would never get the idea to stream just because they're so anxious about all that contact.
Yeah.
At the same time, I know people that have it that feel very comfortable with streaming because they always have the control to say, okay, no, I'm gone, bye. But
I also know with streamers, I know of a couple streamers that have, for example, ADD, anxiety, and they are very nervous if they don't stream. Once they stream, they are fine. You know, they're having fun, they're doing their thing, and sometimes, they have rough days and everything else, which we will get into later.
Yeah.
But they also have more anxiety if they do not stream. For example, taking a day off.
Yeah.
Can you explain why certain streamers have that feeling?
I mean, that's basically like being scared of or like having anxiety about failing, mostly, I would say.
It's like the fear of missing out, maybe, or fear of fear of something.
It's missing out, and at the same time, it's also failing the one goal you've set yourself.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
So that I don't have a clinical name for that.
No, I don't. But that's the thing. Like, I think we kind of discussed this already with each other. Is that I think because of streaming and mental health, I think it's such, like, social media in general. It's such a new thing.
Yeah.
I don't think there is enough evidence yet, or scientific evidence yet, to name everything in detail.
Definitely not. Sure.
Do you think eventually we will get there?
I'm pretty sure of it. Yes.
Why?
There is already like research in the area, and even though like the world of research takes a couple years longer than the rest of the world, they will get onto that. And I would say at least in 5 to 10 years we should have very good research about the whole topic.
All right,
it might come a bit late, but we're getting there.
We will get there. Yeah, eventually we will get there. I think there's more and more evidence already. If I look, for example, in my friend group, or if I look at the streamers, or if I look at my team, or whatever like that, I already see a lot of evidence how damaging social media, for example, can be on their health, on their anxiety, on their depression, which is something else that we need to talk about. Can you explain, even though it's kind of hard, and we should try not to go in too much depth and try to keep it kind of lighthearted, because it's such a very difficult and strange subject, depression. What is depression?
So, depression is, in general, it's basically a selection of various things. Like, we could go into the neurologics of that, but that's not what we're here for today.
No.
But like in general, we can go basically through some symptoms that would show you that you have depression. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, that doesn't mean that, like, none of these symptoms say, okay, it is depression after all. There's like 50 like purely physical conditions that evoke very, very similar, if not the same symptom. Yeah. That you should get checked in beforehand, for example.
But is it also true that I read about this, that due to streaming, due to social media and being a content creator, there's a different type of depression kind of formed right now? Have you saw that too somewhere? That is kind of new, that it's like a combination of multiple things that can make somebody into a depressive mental state.
I heard about basically a dopamine hack. That kind of would be the issue after all, because in the end social media does reward you for basically everything until it stops rewarding you for everything, and then you lack dopamine, and that can cause like depressive symptoms, which is a bit of a working theory, but after all, like we know some parts of it, and also like social media in general, for example Instagram has been researched quite a bit too, and how it has like a negative impact on mental health, especially on younger girls.
I think so too, and I think it's still like in development. Does that make any sense when I say that? I think, like I said before, it's such a relatively new thing. It's not been around for like 80 years, you know what I mean? Yeah. And most of the theories are kind of based on like back in the day, right? Exactly. So I think ballpark maybe in 10 years, 5-10 years, we have a lot of more a lot of new and more information probably.
I think it is in general very, very hard to get information about that and actually research it, because you would basically need a group of people that never seen the internet in their life and a group of people that uses them daily, which I think might be hard to research, but I'm sure we will get there. Especially since, like, for example, with video gaming, most of the found effects are very temporary. Okay. So if you I'm not talking about addiction, but like in general, just for example, negative mood, aggressivity, like that kind of stuff. That's not an English word, is it?
I understood it because I'm Dutch. Aggressiveness, maybe?
Aggressiveness, yeah, thank you. Like usually are very temporary and like go away in 2 hours or something. So it might be possible to research it because like if you like take a break from social media and everything for a year, you might be clean again or something or fine again.
Yeah.
It definitely like a very interesting research topic. I'd love to get into that from a research perspective.
Yeah, definitely. But I, as somebody that is not going into research, I think I see it plenty around me, that it can be very damaging. Can be very rewarding, which we talked about as well before in previous episodes. But I think it can also be very damaging. So related to social media, content creation, Twitch, YouTube, what is your overall opinion about all the stuff that we just have mentioned? Do you think it's going to get worse? Do you think it's going to get better because we're talking about it, because we're more open about it? Or what is your opinion about everything?
I think it is good to be open about it because we also show people that there is like risks to all that. And not from the perspective of like, I don't know, an 80-year-old man that has never seen the internet before and being like in my days, the kids didn't use the phone and they were happy. Like not that kind of perspective, but the kind of perspective of a person that's right in the middle of all this. Yeah. Right. In general, I think it will get worse before it gets better. Because like looking around my own environment, like political environment of Germany, there's not much not much work being put in teaching people on how to internet. I don't know about how it is in the Netherlands. Not enough.
We are trying to get into the whole cyberbullying, which
we got that too. That's a good start.
Yeah, so it's a good start, but it's not yet about the in-depth of like. We are talking about like the dangers of social media and internet, but we're not talking about like what it can do to a person, like depression and stuff like that. Even though on schools right now in the Netherlands are being taught about like mental health and stuff, you know, trying that there's like counseling now and there's like counselors around and stuff like, so there's like a little bit of a change. Not a lot, but we're getting there. Like we're going somewhere, you know? Yeah. Is it enough? I don't know yet, because I don't think we are grasping the fact of how severe it can actually be or already is.
I agree.
All right. So we were talking about depression. Yes. How does that correlate to streaming? So can you give an example? Do you know anybody that might have this or anything like that at all? So how does it correlate with depression, anxiety, etc. to streaming?
Like in general, the way you would notice or the way you see that is usually if like for example, people are struggling to go live, they sometimes talk about that on stream too. Like many Twitch streamers I know are actually very open about like anxiety and depression and how they're fighting that. Also like not like also very big ones too. Yeah. That are very open about it and being like, yeah, I had to take a month off. I needed a
break. Yeah.
I needed a break. I couldn't do it. And then chat is asking something like, yeah, what were you doing? And they're like, yeah, basically I was existing and playing World of Warcraft.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
And yeah, it's as a viewer, it is sometimes hard to notice, like really depending on how the person can cope with it. If they like how bad it got. Because arguably it's a bit of a scale. Like there's a huge difference between like a mild depressive episode or a mild depression and a heavy one.
Yeah, and a heavy one. But like for example, I have seen other streamers calling out other people saying like, oh, why don't you just talk about your mental health? You're being depressed or and stuff like that. Why don't you just talk about it with your chat? I think that's very unfair.
Yeah, you shouldn't get pushed to talk about it if you don't want to.
Because they are saying that people that are not doing that are putting up a front.
That's a pretty wild statement, honestly.
I saw it on Twitter. Twitter is, of course, the greatest thing ever when you want to see people's opinions. But even really harsh opinions. Good opinions, harsh opinions. But yeah, I've seen that people were saying, like, if you are depressed, you should just speak openly about it with your community. If you don't, you're putting up a front and maybe you are coming across as fake. I think that's very unfair.
It definitely is.
I think because sometimes a lot of people cope with their own depression because they are streaming. That's a coping mechanism. They are streaming, they are laughing, they're having fun. They're kind of forgetting at that point that they are actually very sad, very lonely, very depressed, or having major anxiety. But because they're hanging out with the community and streaming a game or something that they're having fun with, they kind of are losing themselves in that moment in a good way.
Yeah.
And I don't think we should take that away from anybody.
Absolutely.
And I don't think that we should force anybody to speak about their own issues, because why should we force people to do that? Because that's also a mental health thing. They need to do that by themselves.
Yeah.
So what is your opinion about that?
In general, I find it pretty stupid take to say that people should be open about their mental illness. It's the same way we shouldn't, like, we don't have to be open about our physical illnesses. I don't know, if I have like a giant wart on my back, I don't feel the need to tell that to my chat for some reason. Like, there's absolutely no reason. Yeah, exactly. And it's like, even though it's a bit of a funny example to make it a bit more lighthearted, you have no obligatory to talk about your depression to your chat. That's
even though I have seen though that like a lot of communities are saying like, we salute you for being so open about it, right? Which is great. But I also
still your choice.
That's a choice. But I also think not every person that is suffering, from their home situation or school or work, or they are having the exact same problems that everybody else has, and maybe they are having a depression, or maybe they are having major anxiety. They don't want to see the person that they maybe really enjoy watching as their escape. They don't want to see that person being sad either. It doesn't help them.
Well, I mean, in the end, I still stand by the opinion that it's always the streamer's choice to what they should want to talk about. And at the same time, just talking about depression doesn't mean that you show yourself in that state on stream. That's a different thing.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That is true. But I find it though. I know, for example, for a fact that some people that are also in my community are struggling themselves, and they are kind of using Twitch or streamers as their escape mechanism. They are using that to make themselves feel happy and less lonely and everything. And I know that they told me that doesn't always help them if they are watching a person that actually should not have streamed that day. It doesn't help them either.
Yeah.
It's a very delicate thing. Like, at one point you want to be very honest and share it with your community, but at the same time it can also be damaging to certain people as well.
Absolutely.
Which is such a crazy thing that I never thought about while I just started streaming.
Yeah, me neither, honestly. Like, when I started streaming, I didn't even think about that there would be days where I shouldn't have streamed.
Yeah.
That's a thing, that's a concept that you don't realize exists until you're there.
No, until you're actually doing it, and then you're like, okay, maybe I should not have streamed that day.
Maybe I should have taken this day off and done something.
All right, so as we talked about, there's a couple different, things that people can suffer from. Is it noticeable if a streamer has it?
Not necessarily.
Why not?
Well, as you said before, and I think that's very true, streaming itself is a great way to put your mind in the state of now, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Like, is it like you're forgetting it or something, or how does that work?
It basically, so the moment you think about the future, you have a chance to get anxious about it, right? Mm-hmm. But if you only think about now, then it's kind of hard to get anxious about it because it's already happening. And I feel like streaming puts you very much in the state of just thinking about the now and not about the future, because you're very busy. Okay. Which sounds a bit weird, but like, there's a lot of things you do at the same time. So your mind is very busy, and you're very busy about all the things that are happening in that exact moment. And that's why I think it can like help you to pull you out of that state. I also think it is because you're less lonely. There are people in your chat, and I am fortunate that there are a couple people in my chat talking back to me. I know how hard it is if there are
2 people watching you, 5 people watching you, and they are hardly talking. And you kind of have to talk to maybe sometimes nobody.
Yeah.
However, I'm in the fortunate state right now that we worked our asses off, and we are right now having, it's true, more viewers that are talking back to you because we have grown. We were doing this almost together for like 2 years now, I think, roughly. So when people are talking back to me, for example, I feel less alone. I don't know, even when I only had like 5 viewers, I can still remember. Trust me, I started there too. Yeah. Is that even though nobody was talking in chat, not really, I felt there was somebody listening.
Yeah.
That's pretty much how I coped with having not that many viewers, but also having a really bad day. And that was my coping mechanism. Like, there must be somebody listening. There must be somebody maybe watching the VOD back, and maybe I made their day.
Yeah.
With my stupid jokes that are sometimes really unfunny. And nobody's laughing except I am.
That's perfect. That's already enough people laughing.
No, but do you have the same feeling?
If I'm laughing, someone else has to laugh too. Like,
exactly.
There's no way I'm the only person stupid enough to laugh about that.
Yeah. And that's why we like each other very much as friends. But the thing is, do you have this too? Or do you recognize any of this, what I just said?
Absolutely. Like, having that feeling less lonely because you have someone to talk to is a very like ancient concept, and it works pretty well in streaming too.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty great, and imagining that someone is listening is just great. Like, it's not necessarily like, sure, the interaction is great, it's like the best thing that can happen to you.
Yeah.
But like, starting out, that is very hard. Getting that interaction going in the first place. Which
is funny that you say that, but I know a lot of people that in streaming that I know that I'm friends with have major anxiety and depression. For example, by actually starting recording or actually starting streaming, the anxiety to even press that button is immense. So sometimes what happens is that they don't stream because they just can't handle it. However, what happens then is that their anxiety is even worse because they are not streaming.
Yes.
They're actually taking a mental health day, or they're taking a self-care day, and it doesn't help. But I think a lot of viewers or communities don't know this. The fact that a streamer is taking a self-care day or a mental health day doesn't always mean that they're having fun and they're enjoying their day somewhere and doing something great. It really isn't.
Yeah.
It can even be worse. The same with like depression. I know a lot of streamer friends that feel very alone, and that's why they stream. But I also know that the moment that they stopped streaming or they stop streaming, you have to see it like this. As a viewer, and you might not understand this, and I think a lot of streamers that are maybe watching can relate, is that the moment you press that button of stop streaming, there's silence. You shut down your OBS, you shut down your music, you shut down your game or whatever, and you're just alone in your room and there's nobody there. And I think that is something that a lot of people don't realize, of how lonely and how depressive that can make you, or depressive that can make you. And my question is, do you have any advice for maybe streamers that are watching right now, maybe even viewers, like, you know, to be kind and everything else, that this is actually a very serious thing, that the person behind the screen may be suffering from something, but they just don't always show it. Do you have any advice regarding this subject for everybody involved that might be watching?
I think, and I know I said that last episode too, I believe, but if you struggle with mental problems like depression, like anxiety, like all these things, and you feel like it has a really bad negative impact on your life, like that's basically the latest point, that's where you should try to find a mental health professional to talk to and to work with. Because after all, I can give you like tips and stuff of what is good for me, and you might say like things that you find really good for yourself and that help you self-care. But at the end, like, it is personal, and in the end, if it's like getting to a state where it's like really dangerous, you should find a mental health professional to work with.
And what if they can't afford it? Because we are
There
fortunate.
is-
We have to say we are very fortunate. You're
Yeah.
from Germania, and I'm from Hollandia. We are very fortunate in that sense.
We have health insurance, yes.
Yes, it's a big thing. I mean, it's true. Like for example, in America, it's probably a bigger problem right now.
I can see that, yes. However, I think, as far as I know, there is free resources in America too.
I think there is.
They're like, I'm gonna have to look that up. But there's definitely free resources, and there should be free resources in every, or like in most countries. I don't dare to say every, but like in many countries, and that you could try to get. And there's also projects and charity organizations that try to help in such cases.
I
Like,
think
I'm-
I think it would be very good if we find something that we posted down the video below. So if anybody
Yes.
is watching and you need any help, please go down the links in the description box below the video.
Absolutely.
All right. Is there anything that maybe you can say from your own experience that helped you?
Sure. So a while back, I started to pick my guitar back up.
Oh wow.
That actually helped with a lot of things, funny enough, because it's also a very quick way to get in the state of now and to not like think about the future, because you're very much focused about the thing you do in that exact moment. And
Was
it's
it-
also a thing that you get better at.
Was it always a passion?
It was a passion when I was like 13, so
Aw,
very young.
Such a long time ago.
It's been a while, like it's been 16 years or something since then. And,
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's a pretty long while ago. And then I lost that passion during like high school, and picked it up like 2 years into college back,
Oh wow.
and
Okay.
didn't stop till now. Like I'm still didn't stop, but
I got it.
I'm still doing it. So that's the thing that helps me personally. I said that before, but like talking to friends is a thing that helps me a lot. Like just being, it doesn't even need to be talking about me or talking about mental health issues or talking about anything
No.
useful. You could just be like memeing around and do whatever, but that already helps me, like getting out of my own like headspace,
Yeah.
basically.
But some people unfortunately don't have a lot of friends.
Yeah.
What should they do?
You can, I mean, instruments are definitely not the worst of all choices.
Yeah, I think so. I think the biggest thing is that you need to keep yourself busy
Yeah.
and don't be afraid.
Like if mental health professionals and friends are no issue, no option,
Yeah.
then I guess you have to find like a different way. Like for example, going outside, going for walks, maybe sports. Especially in sports, you might even be able to make friends there, because there's usually like some kind of club, and then you meet people that do the
Yeah.
same thing, and maybe you two enjoy that together and stuff. Or even like in Twitch communities, there's usually people that you can talk to and that you just play some games with, and that already is a
Which
thing
is
that helps.
okay, I'm going to interrupt you here because
Yeah.
it's interesting that you say that, because we talked about social anxiety,
Yeah.
which is a big thing in streaming. But it's
Yeah.
also a big thing in, for example, streamers that have to go into a new community
Yeah.
and make friends.
Yeah.
For example, I struggle with that because I have
Yeah.
social anxiety due to I don't know what. And it's very scary for me to go into a community and be present and be like, hello, you know?
Yeah.
And people might be very cliquey or maybe are very like loyal friends with each other for like 2-3 years, and then suddenly a new person comes in, and it's very hard if you have that to
Yeah.
go into new communities or make new friends.
Yeah.
What is your advice with that?
It's a thing I'm thinking about a lot, honestly, because I'm trying to find out if there's anything I as a streamer can do to help that.
I will speak from my own experience, is that I literally had to kick myself under the butt and do it. Literally do it. How easy that sounds, because it's not. But at one point I had to get over that fear of rejection, of not being liked, etc., etc. And eventually you learn. I'm also a lot older. But I think eventually you learn that you are not liked by everybody, and that is okay.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that you should stop trying. So when you, for example, get into a new community and you say hello and you keep coming back, then eventually, if that community really brings you in, that might be the right community for you. But sometimes you get blatantly ignored, and that means that is not the right community for you. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to give up.
Yeah.
I think with streaming and communities as well, you have to be careful, but you should also be kind of fearless. Try. Just try. Yeah.
We said that before too, I think. Like, you have a lot of options in the internet, and if you dare to try it once and it fails, you can try again somewhere else, and no one will ever recognize you again. And that's kind of cool too.
Yeah.
It's literally like moving to a different city to, like, I don't know, in a bar.
To try again. Yeah, exactly. I mean, as a streamer, that's a little bit harder.
Yeah.
But as long as you're the wholesome, funny, nice person, there's not much you can do wrong. And like I said, if you are not getting into that community, it's not the right community, but that does not necessarily mean you should give up.
Yeah.
All right.
It's usually you can find pretty quickly of like if the humor works. Like that's the thing. Like,
the jokes that you sometimes make.
Jokes. Yeah, like for example, if you make a joke and at least someone like recognized it was a joke, or they recognize it was a very bad joke, that can also be a form of humor too.
It sounds like you're speaking out of experience.
Yeah, I do. Like some of the best friends I've made in the recent years was because they always crack absolutely horrific jokes. Yeah. But that's I'm like, it's fine. Like I find that very funny in my own way. Just if you just find their humor useful, like that's a bit of a telltale. Like if you can laugh about their jokes, that's usually a good start.
Yeah, and if you like their vibe.
Yeah, definitely.
Like I feel as well when I go into certain streams and the vibe is not it, I'm not gonna try, because it's like either you vibe with them or you're not. And then if it's not, then try again, maybe a different day. Maybe they also had a bad day, you never know, right? Or so, but yeah, like I keep telling people, if you stop trying, there's something wrong. And I think it's very important that you should not give up, also on yourself.
Yeah.
And keep trying to make more friends, and that's pretty much what we did.
I think another thing you can always ask yourself is, what would I need so it would be easy for me? Like, what tool could help me to make it easy for me?
Ooh.
And then, like, in case that doesn't need to be God or something, then you could, like, think, okay, well, how can I make this easier for me? Which tool would help me?
Yeah, what helps you? Yeah, that's a good one. Very good one.
And there's also meditations for that. Like, meditation, another thing that really helps. You don't need to believe into anything. Like it's not spiritual after all. It's more. It's basically it's therapy sessions with yourself.
It is
introspection if you want to.
Yeah, because meditation, a lot of people think like, oh, it's like really dreamy and stuff. It's really not. It also it has to do a lot with like breathing exercises, for example.
Exactly.
And it makes you a lot stronger, apparently.
It helps with several things.
Yeah.
And there's like also a million different ones. And the good thing is, if you don't believe it, just try, and it's free. If you hate it, never do it again.
Never do it again, and then go on to the next one that you might is the thing for you. All right. Is there anything else we need to talk about?
Imposter syndrome.
Oh. All right.
So imposter syndrome is a bit of an interesting thing. It's usually people that are usually qualified for what they do, that all of a sudden doubt that they're qualified for what they're doing. And they get that feeling from usually very random things. Like, for example, you're about to like play some games on stream, but you don't know how to change the source or something. And all of a sudden you start to question everything about being a streamer. Oh my god, if I can't even do this, who am I? Am I even, like, why are all these people here? They think I'm a good streamer. I did absolutely nothing. Like,
yeah, I think that as well, but it also has to do what we've talked about before, like the viewer count. It talks about the imposter syndrome in the sense like you compare yourself with different streamers.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest one. I think so many people that I know, so many people on Twitter are saying this as well. Imposter syndrome, I'm having a bad day, blah, blah, blah. So I think every streamer, mostly all the streamers that I see, have that issue sometimes.
Yeah. And not only streamers. Like, this is actually very, very widespread. Especially in the demographic of so-called young professionals. It's a bit of a funny name. It's like, it happens like really, really often. Coming like fresh out of university, getting into the first job, and they're like, oh god, I don't know anything. What am I doing here? I have not learned this.
I still don't know.
See,
no, but it's true.
Yeah, in the end, like, that's like a very widespread problem, and I think it might happen to like really a lot of people.
I think it has to do with a lot of pressure from the society. Should I elaborate what I mean with that?
Yeah, sure.
So pretty much it's like when you just get out of college, you have that dream in front of you, like, I'm gonna get this job, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna be financially stable, I'm gonna get so much a month because I've researched it before I studied it, etc., etc., and then suddenly real life hits. You're getting denied constantly, you're not finding a job constantly, at a job that you actually wanted, you're getting denied, or it's not possible yet because you don't have any work experience, and maybe your family is saying you have to do this, or you have to pay rent again. And like, there's so much going on once you done with something like college or like university, doesn't matter. I think there's so much pressure on people nowadays to make it. And I think content creation has a lot to do with that. For example, like social media, because we see so many successful people. There's so many shows that surround successful people and follow them and everything else. And you see them in most expensive cars, and they'll always look beautiful every single day, the most beautiful clothing. And I think we look up to that and think that's normal.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that has a lot to do with it. And that also has a lot to do with like imposter syndrome with streaming, because we want to be something like that we look up to or that we want to be. And the moment that we don't get it, or the moment that the viewership is down or something, we get very, very insecure. And then we're talked about like the depression and anxiety comes around, thinking it's all you and you should not be streaming.
Yeah.
How do you cope with that?
I want to start a little bit earlier. Basically how I coped with that after work. Okay. Like after I got into work, into like a full-time job. And funny enough, like getting into that place taught me that, or like showed me that no one actually knows what they're doing. Like everyone's improvising. Like they kind of disillusionized myself with it, well, because I realized there is no magic after work in working.
Oh, somebody just followed. Thank
That's
you!
all right.
Yeah.
So there's no magic after all. Everyone's just like improvising and doing their stuff. But like being out of that full-time job, I kind of lack that constant reminder that everybody's just trying.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I guess.
But why did you feel that way though? Because you said you made yourself like that was an illusion, but it came from somewhere.
Because if you see, like, it's the same thing with the social media. If you see like a finished product, it looks like there was some kind of magic. Let's say you want to buy a camera, and you buy this magic box, and it can do all the things you want it to do. Right? It seems like magic from the outside, unless you're an engineer, then it doesn't seem like magic anymore.
Don't you just think it's like I said, we see it everywhere. We are pretty much like influenced also by school and stuff to do that, to be successful.
Yes.
So.
And we see always the perfect product, but we barely see the road to it.
Yeah.
And that makes us feel like we should know how to do it.
And we don't.
And we don't.
I think a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
So how do you relate that to streaming?
I mean, in general, I don't think I have to tell anyone that comparing yourself to others is not healthy. I think that is usually like that's kind of common knowledge that it's not going well if you're comparing yourself to others.
Yeah.
Even though I know how hard it is to not do that. Like I'm not saying this is easy. Don't get me wrong. But rather like take inspiration from what they're doing and see if that can work. I'm also not saying copy. I'm saying take inspiration.
Yeah, but I also think that you should not doubt yourself. I think a lot of people are looking to other people because what's working for them doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you. So you have to be true to yourself. You have to look at maybe write it down on a piece of paper. What are your weaknesses? What are your strengths? Look back at your own VODs and think like, okay, what was I doing there? If I was watching that, would I be, enjoying this content right now? Yes or no? And if it's no, then try to change it into the way of like, what would I like to see? And then try to implement that in your own streams.
Yeah.
But I want to stress this, and this is also a reminder for myself, and for every streamer out there, you should not give up and not compare yourself to others, because what works for them does not necessarily work for you. And I think you should believe in your own strength.
Yeah, definitely. And like from the this is kind of easy. Like let's think about like the best players in the world. There's someone that is like really really good at shootering, for example Shroud or someone. Like they're really really good at playing shooter games, and chances are you will never be that good. But you don't need to be that good to be like a streamer. Like you can have other qualities, and like realizing that everyone has different qualities. It's basically what you said, but like making it a little bit more graphic too. You don't need to be the best player in the world to be a streamer. You don't need to be the most funny person in the world to be a streamer. You don't need to be the smartest person in the world to be a streamer. A lot of it is about personality, about you being you, about making things that work for you. They don't necessarily work for everyone else. Like for example, if I did the things you did on stream, I'm pretty sure that would be pretty much a disaster, because it's just like that wouldn't work so well for me.
So what do I do?
Like for example, the different games and DVD that you have invented or created. I don't think I could do that very well.
You don't like to boop the snoot?
Yeah, that I would not understand all this.
Yeah.
Kind of. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I understand what you mean.
It's just like a different thing, and it doesn't work for everyone. And it doesn't need to. It needs to work for you.
I like that. So as to end this all. How should we end this? What should we say? We talked about so many severe and heavy stuff, heavy topics. So how to end this on a lighthearted note?
I found the information that you being you is kinda exactly what you should aim for, a pretty helping note. Like it kinda takes away a burden if you don't have to be the best.
Yeah, you should not have to be the best. Try to look out for yourself.
Yeah.
Try to see what are your strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
And definitely, if you can seek help, then try.
Yes.
And try to see what works for you. And also in regards to mental health.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you so much, Deevoz.
Yeah, absolutely.